Good evening, good morning, good night, you lovelies. One, only Captain P. Barber. We are here for a review. No, we are not. This is a little different. It's a little change of pace, if you would. We are actually here to do a little bit of fantasy booking, huh? Check me out. Check me out. Personally, I think that Seth Rollins, if you were to make a top 50 wrestlers of the 21st century, it would be impossible to not have him on there. I mean, from his work from Tyler Black to every single arc and character that he has kind of worked and perfected inside of the Fed, from the architect to the visionary, I mean, to the Messiah. It's just, he's over. He's been, at some points, notoriously over. And of course, there are some things back here. There's some things here and there. You can talk about maybe like the backstage politician. You can talk about a lot of things, right? But Seth Rollins gets the fucking job done, right? And, from what we've seen with the Bloodline and the Death Riders with Jon Moxley and Roman Reigns, respectfully, it really does seem like we're in this age where Seth Rollins is a bit deserving of a faction. But for some reason, the faction that we've gotten was introduced to us on the fly. It involved somebody that Seth Rollins had smoked with, which is a very interesting concept. They fought it out, whatever the fuck that means. And then you add nobody else except for Becky Lynch, who was actively going to be defending her title against Maxine Dupree, against everyone else in that locker room. I have no statements and I have no comments. What I'm making a simple observation of is that maybe things seem to be going a bit of nowhere. I mean, we're kind of locked in this story with the Usos and the LA Knight Bears. I don't really understand what the real point of any of this is. So I'm gonna do a little bit of scratching on the old noggin up here, and I might come up with something better than triple frauder, triple booker, triple K, triple trumper. He's deserved it. All right, not letting back on that fucking bald fraud. All right, you really can't make logic out of the no names, so I'm gonna see if I can do this better. Because I'm a smart ass. I can't do the two things. Ding. All right, we are starting off this booking with Seth losing to CM Punk at SummerSlam. AJ Lee, she doesn't make a return. Becky Lynch doesn't have an involvement in the match. It's about a 35-minute match. These two beat the shit out of each other, paint the canvas red, and at the end of it, they just have a stare down and just walk off. Real man shit. All right, real man shit between these two. They put their differences aside. They have an amazing match, and that's the end of their story. Okay, they are going to be getting something later down the line. But that's it. It's this and it's that. We're not going to keep rehashing this fucking story. Paul, take notes. I know that you watch all these videos, right? I know you watch independent fucking creators' videos, right? You're not low, all right? You're not sneaky anymore, Paul. We all know. Okay? After this, Punk tries to get his footing, right? He tries to team up with Otis and Chad Gable, but that doesn't work. And, he also tries to team up with New Day, Big E in this timeline is perfectly healthy, but that doesn't work either. He does kind of seem like he's just in between places right now. Seth, he involves himself in a 6-man ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. It's Dom, Omis, Seth, Kofi Kingston, Cedric Alexander, Julius Creed. All these guys are brawling out. Seth immediately takes out Kofi because, their small New Day history that they have. Puts him through a table. Mick Foley pile driver straight through the announce table. Kofi's just deemed to be out for the rest of the match. Carried to the back of the whole thing. Omis takes out Dom with a side slam. Seth curb stomps Omis, while he tries to get his bearings 3 times because Omis is a big motherfucker, and Omis is essentially kind of just put out for the entirety of this match. For a good amount of this match, Omis is just going to be on the sidelines. Seth Rollins taunts. Him and Cedric have a really good back and forth, and while they're brawling, Cedric almost gets the best of him a couple of times. But Seth, obviously curb stomps Cedric before Julius takes out Seth with his finisher. Seth kind of just lays low till he thinks he could find a proper opportunity. Cedric, he's going crazy in the ring. He missile drop kicks Dom, hits a finisher on Julius, and Kofi, he limps out from the crowd, right? There's medics and there's staff trying to hold him back. And, Seth, while he sees everybody's down, he tries to spring up and get a ladder ready. And Kofi, he sees this. Cedric running in the ring to intercept Seth, not seeing Kofi. Kofi hits a springboard trouble in paradise, and Seth ducks. It clocks Cedric, and Seth uses this opportunity to hit Kofi with a curb stomp. Seth, he looks up at the title really quick. Dom runs in. He tries to face off with Seth, but Seth is way too experienced, so he's not putting no fear in Seth Rollins' heart. So Dominic just kind of like scurries out the ring. And, Seth, he looks up at the title, he looks down at Cedric, and he looks back at the title, and he's thinking for a second, and you can see it on his face. This isn't my moment. This moment isn't meant for you. This moment is meant for somebody else. This moment is meant for my partner. He lifts up Cedric, he gets him on the ladder, like kind of pushes him up, and he helps Cedric Alexander obtain the IC title, right? Mind you, this is all just one random night of Raw, right? Nobody expected the title to actually change hands from Julius Creed, picking it up off of Carmelo Hayes. What really shocked the entire universe was Seth organically helping somebody. He is so natural to turn his back, and Cedric Alexander, the next night on Raw, the next week on Raw, he comes out, he's celebrating that he's IC champion, but he has a question, and only a question that Seth Rollins could answer. Seth Rollins comes out, goes, whoa, whoa, it's pretty cool, pretty nice. He goes down to the ring, and he explains to Cedric that he did what he did because he sees the future of the industry in Cedric. A sword that can defend this company for generations to come. He says that the time of the Shield is dead, and it's time for a new era in WWE. Cedric says, kind of naturally, that he doesn't want anybody to decide his fate for him, and he's his own man. He challenges Seth for a 1v1 tonight at the main event for the IC title. Seth accepts under one condition. Seth, if he wins, doesn't only get the title, but he gets Cedric's loyalty. And that's very important. Seth and Cedric have an insane match. Really good spots in between both of them, hypothetically, where Seth holds back for a good majority and pushes Cedric to his limit. We can see Cedric in the latter half of the match dragging himself up, tugging on Seth's gear, kind of willingly, kind of defiantly getting up and standing up to Seth, and he's telling Seth, to finish it, to fucking finish it, right? Seth throws him down and sets up for a curb stomp, but Cedric hits Seth, but Cedric attempts to hit Seth with a pop-up super kick. This pop-up super kick is countered into a pedigree. Cedric is unconscious. Seth is dazed on the floor, and Seth makes the cover. 1, 2, 3. Cedric gets up, after Seth has finished celebrating, and Cedric goes over to hand the IC title to Seth Rollins, the technical new IC champion. But Seth tells Cedric to keep it because he has earned that tonight. And he grabs him by his head like an Italian mafia capo and says, "Welcome to the sword." Seth and Cedric team up for a little bit until they come across Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker. Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker, they were a really good tag team in NXT, but when they got up to the main roster, they're on a bit of a losing streak. They're currently on 8 losses straight. They're kind of the jobber team right now, and things are a little rocky between them. They lose this match, and after the win, Seth gets a hot mic, and he says, "Ha ha 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 ha. What's that, Baron, huh? 8 in a row? You guys must have some bad luck. You know what I see when I look at you, Baron? I see a vagabond, a freeloader, piggybacking all off of Braun's talent. He's a genetic freak. Wrestling just isn't in your blood, huh, Baron? What do you say, Braun? And Braun, at the time, he's carrying his partner to the back, because Baron just got the shit beat out of him. He's unable to move technically without Braun in kayfabe. And Braun, he hears his name for a second, he pauses. And Seth continues. I wonder what your father thinks of these losses. And Braun, he lets go of Baron. Baron kind of just falls down by the wayside, kind of helpless. And Braun beelines for the ring, and he has a face-off with Seth. And Seth says, easy, Fido. Big dog. I trained with your father. He made me a weapon, broke my body to become the man I am today. He never asked me for 1 cent, not one. All he asked of me was to become heartless, to become ruthless, to slay my enemies with a sword of wrath. Braun, he's trying to just shake off all of this, being that his father's name was invoked, and he's trying to not let that be the catalyst for all of his thoughts. Seth continues, starts to circle Braun. The power, the mind, the speed, you have all of it. You just lack opportunity. And he gestures very subtly with his eyes towards a weakened, defeated Baron Corbin, whimpering on the ring, begging for Braun to come help him because he can't get backstage on his own. He needs Braun. And Seth continues, I can see an opportunity right now, Braun. What would the old man say? Ooh, barks at Braun. This kind of awakens the crowd. They start barking at Braun, and Braun's trying to just shake off the kind of intimidation and the temptation of Seth, kind of the devil on his shoulder. And and Braun begins to walk up the ring very slowly. And Seth screams, enraged at this point. What will you do, Braun? Live in the now, or carve your own future. Seth and Cedric begin to start to exit the ring. Braun, very subtly takes down his straps, and he turns towards the sword. Seth, he isn't worried. Cedric, kind of perks up a little bit from his lazy-daxical kind of attitude that he had before when Braun was in the ring. And Seth very subtly just makes a gesture with his throat, slitting with his thumb. And Braun thinks about it. 2 seconds. And then he turns around and he murders Baron Corbin with the spear. Braun Breaker throws Baron Corbin into the ring. Seth hits a curb stomp. Cedric hits his finisher. And they all stand on top of a broken man. The sword has been expanded. Cedric and Braun have a match against Ludwig Kaiser and Gianno Bonci, I believe that's his name, in Imperium Light. That's what I call them. I have my own Imperium video. I might soon, who knows. At the end of the match, the sword, they start jumping on, Imperium Light. And suddenly, Gunther, he arrives and he clears house. And him and Seth have a face-off to end Raw, right? With this being the setup, we get Seth versus Ludwig for Raw, and Gunther versus Braun Breaker for SmackDown on the Go Home show for Crown Perth. This is going to be the Sword versus Imperium. Seth and his group will go over, Gunther, and surrounding Ludwig, Gunther is in the corner, kind of just, we see that all of Imperium's just defeated, just kind of like laid around, they destroyed tables. It was insane. It was a crazy match. And they all do the throat gesture simultaneously. And, Ludwig is begging, and, he's sniveling, and he's crying, and he's pleading with Seth. And Seth picks him up by his face, and he screams at him, "Carve your own destiny," and tosses Ludwig towards Gunther. Cedric is mocking, like Cedric Alexander is like mockingly clapping, egging on Ludwig, as he's kneeling in tears, defeated with no other option. And he puts down Gunther. They all put down Gunther with their finishers, and Ludwig has now joined the Sword. The Sword has now expanded. A month or so passes, and Seth is the main piece for the Sword. It is a favorite occasional backstage segment. Braun and Ludwig, they pick up tag team gold, and Seth says that the only one goal now is the big fish, Finn Balor, the Demon. He has created his own group after, the Bullet Club with him, AJ Styles, Finn Balor, not Demon Finn Balor, Cody Rhodes, AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson. After that kind of broke up, after AJ went to AEW, this is on my timeline, remember that, folks. We have a Demon Finn Balor running around. He picks up tag gold off of the Fiend, and to kind of make his own kind of safety net with all the factions running around, it's Finn Balor's Demon, Damian Priest, Uncle Howdy, and Eric Rowan, right? Occasionally Eric Rowan teams up with Karrion Kross, so he's kind of like a sub homie, if you would. They are all kind of just like an unofficial tag team. They tag up, often, but there's nothing on the books that they're official tag team. Seth calls out for Finn, and Damian comes out. Damian says that he's not scared of the Switchblade or whatever this group is called. He had to fight bigger cockroaches back in Puerto Rico. But he says that his friend in the Demon Finn Balor won't be back until January's Royal Rumble, and everybody knows that. And Seth, very smugly, just wears a smile and says, "Yeah, Damian, you're right. I did know that." And a masked man comes out from the back and chokes out Damian with a steel wrench. And, they roll him down to the ring, they start beating on him. And Seth Rollins hits his finisher. The masked man hits his finisher, and we realize that when you take off the mask, it's Austin Theory. Austin Theory, he's super chipper. He's super happy to be out here because after he got drafted up from NXT, he hasn't really had any real playing time. This is the most he's gotten for a while. And Seth makes it evident that Austin's been trying to get in touch with him since Seth started teaming up with Otis, right after his SummerSlam loss to CM Punk. So this is a big opportunity for Austin. And, Seth said that he did an amazing job. And now he only has one more test to pass. He tells Austin Theory to make that steel wrench a sword. And they start attacking Austin Theory. Austin Theory, he has a good couple moments where he tries to fight back and he does the best, but the numbers are just simply too much. He gets pummeled one by one. Seth hits curb stomp. Everyone else kind of hits their finisher, and Seth, bloody, from kind of getting hit in the face with the pipe wrench, he puts his bloody face right up against Austin Theory's unconscious face, and he says, "Ha, hell, kid, you put up one hell of a fight. That's what the future needs. You and I are now under contract. Welcome to the 5th layer of hell." And after recruiting Austin Theory, the Sword have a segment on Raw where they celebrate this new addition to the group. He starts with one simple question for the WWE Universe. Do I have your attention now. You sang my stupid song and cheered and booed and tweeted and laughed, and you all laughed at me. Said that I would be alone forever after Roman left, after that lunatic left. I'd be alone for good. Well, guess what? The only thing that can kill a shield is a sword. And we are the sword of this company. The men behind me will defend this company in terms of talent long after I'm dead. That's how important these men are. Not one man in that locker room can rival me. Not in the ring and not in the mic, because all the men that can stand behind me ready to die for this company. God forbid somebody else tries to claim the future. We are the future. We will carve a new path. We will carve a new era. We will carve and the New Day come out, shucking and jiving, gyrating their hips. And Big E, at the time was playing a manager role. He can't wrestle as much because of that little injury, but he's not out of action, okay? Every other little pay-per-view or so, he hop in that ring. So, he gets a nice little match. Don't kill me, okay? But he is the manager like MVP is for the Hurt Syndicate. Xavier and Kofi says that they understand why Seth is so mad. I mean, one of his best friends turned into a psychotic, manipulating dictator, and the other one just threw a really big party Seth just wasn't invited to. They take turns berating the members of the Sword, making jokes about seeing Eric Bischoff hidden behind one of them, kind of alluding to it being a kind of NWO. And Big E announces that for Survivor Series, that them as a collective is just too much trouble for the WWE. So they're going to take care of it. And they said that they are, and they asked the WWE Universe, but who could our fourth and fifth man be? And we learned that it is none other than Keith Lee and Trick Williams. It is going to be a 10-man elimination tag match for Survivor Series New Day, with Keith Lee and Trick Williams, kind of New Day adjacent, versus the Sword. Some of the matches leading up to Survivor Series will be Austin Theory and Cedric Alexander versus Trick Williams and Kofi Kingston. Xavier Woods versus Ludwig Kaiser. Ludwig will be going over on that. Seth versus Keith Lee. Seth will be going over. And Big E versus Braun will be a DQ brawl, and that will be our kind of go-home show for Survivor Series. I do not want to book a lot of DQ brawls. I think that those are bullshit. It's really lazy writing. Have niggas go over clean. Period. That's how you establish stakes in this fucking company. Survivor Series has the Sword going over on New Day, and they're celebrating in the ring, right after the match, right before Roman's music hits. He is followed by the Usos, Sami Zayn, and Paul Heyman. He gets down on his knees, not mic'd up, just as loud as he could fucking be, right? New York's finest. He prays for the gods to bring forth the most heinous, the most untethered, and the most unholy wrath. So God help his soul. The lights flick off, Jacob Fatu appears, and he clears the ring. Up for the Bloodline versus the Sword at Unforgiven, our December pay-per-view. Apparently there isn't a pay-per-view for December. That's bullshit. That's fucking lazy. These fucking talents deserve a lot more than that. Right, so Unforgiven is going to be our pay-per-view. It will end in Seth and Roman ending the kind of tag team gauntlet that they will be running. Seth and Roman will kind of be in the latter half of their match. A lot of reverses, a lot of good chemistry happening, and we'll get a surprise from Hakulua, and he will be returning. His entire thing will just kind of be like he's disgusted by the wrestling industry. Everyone's too soft. Everyone's too preppy. His father will be disgusted by the kind of wrestling happening today. No simple shit. I think that's a cool story for him. He takes out Roman, and with Hakua kind of taking out the quote-unquote tribal chief. This is what you could deem to be the biggest taboo, right? Being that Roman at this point is canonically just the tribal chief. So if Akua does go forward with this, it is kind of just removing himself from the bloodline entirely. Well, chef's kiss on. Really nice on my part. He stands over Roman and he just very subtly, like everyone else, slits his throat with the thumb. And he hits Roman with the finisher. Seth curb stomp, 1, 2, 3, right? That is going to be our finish for the Seth. That is going to be our finish for the Sword versus the Bloodline. And now, we are in the month of January. Seth is gunning for Finn Balor. And, it is said that Finn Balor is supposed to be returning tonight on Raw. Tonight on Raw. The Sword is patrolling for Finn. They're kind of terrorizing, Seth's, they're kind of terrorizing Finn's friends, asking what's going on, moving in crowds of threes, and they find R-Truth. And, at first, they're kind of joking around with R-Truth, laughing, hee. And R-Truth, when he finally understands who they're asking for, he says to keep their voices down because he's listening. And the Sword are kind of weirded out. They're like, what the fuck ever? Like, you're weird. Right. The main event, is just regular match, but it's a women's IC title match. And soon as it's about to take place, the Sword come out. They hijack the show and they're demanding an answer. Right. Finn Balor hasn't appeared all night. He is furious and he is demanding Adam Pearce explain this. Adam Pearce says that Finn didn't return one call or one text message, and he doesn't know where Finn Balor is. We soon see a video of Finn Balor about a couple of meters away from the arena, standing on the rooftop in full demon paint, staring at the arena, and he rushes off screen. And it's Damian Priest, Uncle Howdy, Eric Rowan, and Karrion Kross. They're clearing the ring, right? Seth Rollins, he's kind of the last man standing. He's kind of just laying kind of exhausted. And the demon, Finn Balor, he rappels from down the rafters onto the ring, and he hits Seth Rollins with a coup de grace. All right, we are setting up Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor for Royal Rumble, and the Sword beforehand attacked Karrion Kross. He was about to go off against, he was about to have a match against the American Alpha with him and Eric Rowan, and the entire match had to kind of be stopped and reworked in kayfabe because Scarlett was attacked backstage. We learned that this attack was from Sword. Karrion Kross, he's livid. He comes down to the ring, while Seth Rollins and Finn Balor are kind of the latter half of their match, and he starts just wailing on Seth Rollins, beating the shit out of him, and Seth Rollins is laughing away, right? So Finn Balor just kind of tries to tug on Finn. Finn Balor tries to pull Karrion Kross off. It doesn't work, and Karrion Kross ends up kind of getting taken out then Karrion Kross kind of gets taken out by Finn Balor. The entire match has to get thrown out because it was DQ. And, building towards Elimination Chamber, it is going to be Cedric Alexander, going up against Uncle Howdy, where he will lose his IC title. It will be Braun Breaker and Austin Theory going up against the Usos, where they will retain their titles. It will be Randy Orton, CM Punk, Jacob Fatu, Ilya Dragunov, Trick Williams, and Cody Rhodes for the World Heavyweight Championship. And it'll be Seth Rollins and Finn Balor in a ladder match for the WWE title. We will also be getting Rhea and Bianca in the last woman standing match, and in the last woman standing match for the WWE Women's title, and Drew versus Gunther in a no holds barred match. Seth will get the upper hand for most of this match, but the Demon's resilience is just too much, right? It's too much, and it really does catch up to Seth. The Sword and Ludwig and Haku are the only members of the Sword that didn't have a match tonight. They walked down and kind of support, looking to kind of figure out the end of this match, quote unquote. And Seth kind of waves them off. He's telling him to get out of here, go. He doesn't need the help. Seth uses this distraction to trip up Finn, as he's kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And Seth hits a lunatic DDT, a Superman punch, and a curb stomp on Finn Balor in the midst of all this confusion. He grabs the belt, and the Sword celebrate in the ring in their entirety with Seth Rollins, the WWE Champion, Cedric Alexander, a previous IC champion for at least 200 days or so. Oh, I'm happy. Uh, mm, Cedric Alexander. Cedric Alexander, a previous IC champion, Ludwig Kaiser, Braun Breaker, Austin Theory, and Ludwig Kaiser, Braun Breaker, and Austin Theory, your tag team champions, and Hukua is just running through every single person you can find. He is going to be booked as the strongest motherfucker you can be, simply just off the lineage. You know, as Samoan Tax goes crazy. Dating and Seth Rollins going up against Punk for the WWE Championship. You know, Punk, he takes a look at Seth Rollins' sword, and CM Punk, he takes a look at Seth Rollins' kind of sword that he's assembled, and he says he remembers when he couldn't be and he says that he remembers when Seth Rollins couldn't be anything but a shield. And that's kind of the spur for their match. Seth will be going over, but Seth after this will just kind of be the leader of this faction. And I think it's dope. I think Seth Rollins really worked with this. There's a lot of really good pieces built around this. And not for nothing, I think Seth Rollins is deserving of something that actually fucking has weight. Not just we're hanging around each other little boys. All right? This has been a very long video, so I'm going to cut this before something fucking weird happens. But it's me, a boy, Cappy D Barber. All right, this is the quick little fantasy booking for Seth Rollins faction. All right? Y'all stay tuned. Y'all stay beautiful. And y'all stay safe. All right? Peace.